Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club on Joy 620 WRJZ, featuring Marcy and Shelley. Today, conversation will build you up in the faith and encourage you to do what God has called you to do. Brought to you by Simplify Hauling. And now, let's go to the studio with Marcy.
Welcome to the Biscuit Book Club, y'all. We're serving up stories with Southern charm. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Marcy. So grab your cup of coffee or sweet tea and settle in as we chat with today's featured author. And I have to tell you, Shelley, I love this gal that we're going to have on today. Her name is Jenn Hand, and I met her. I was doing a biscuit making class in Cleveland with a friend, Sherry, and she was there at my biscuit making class. So Sherry Parker Fletcher, yeah. And so we met then, and I bought her book, My Yes is on the Table, Moving from Fear to Faith. And she has a podcast that kind of touches all on that same theme. And that book really did change my life. In fact, that was also, I would put that up there with how we felt about Bill Myers. Just say yes to God. Put my yeses on the table and always thinking, like, what is my yes? And I just love it when we can talk about those things, and because sometimes it is a struggle. And one of the things that I love about Jenn, she's the same that in person as she is when she writes, and her writing is so funny. And the other day I was reading about her going to Turkey with a long skirt on and having the skirt get caught into the moving people mover, and all of a sudden she was still moving, but her skirt was not. And I was like, you know what? And she tied it into feeling exposed. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so her. She is so funny. But then also to share that on her stuff, and especially because she does write about a lot of hard things. And I think that there is a certain level of humor that softens a heart to the hard things. And I think somebody that does see the world in a good way like that, with that extra dose of humor, can reach places that maybe some people can't, because she also really uses her humor to touch on those hard things. She has a degree for trauma counseling. So you wouldn't think that when you see her and you hear her podcast. I love her podcast, but she's funny. What is something that, have you ever had an incident like that? I mean, not that you've lost your skirt, but.
I was afraid you were going to ask that question. I was thinking, what? I know I've had several things, but I don't know. One time I know I caught the chimney on fire since we've lived, and I had called my husband, who was 2,000 miles away in Canada, and I said, I caught the chimney on fire. And he said, because we heat with wood here in Alaska. And he said, Shelley, I'm 2,000 miles away. You're going to have to call the fire department. So I did, and they came, and it was a whole mess, but they got the chimney fire out. What about you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would have to say, having 6 kids, that's just a ton of fodder for good material.
Yeah.
So you just are always writing about something. But maybe probably the time when I got my brush, you know, those circle brushes? It was back in the day, and I had a lot of hair, and I was using that, and it got so stuck, I had to have our neighbor come over and cut the brush off my head because it was so stuck. I tried everything. I tried putting conditioner on, and then when I went to get my hair cut like a month later, the gal's like, wow, your hair is really thin on this side. I'm like, well, you know, I sleep on that side. So.
I'm so scared of those brushes. I just don't use them for that reason.
You just never know what's going to happen. But, you know, as a writer, everything's material. So when something happens and you're like, hey, this would make a good guidepost story. So how am I feeling about this? And anyway, I love it that Jenn is so in touch with her audience that when she has funny things happen, it does seem like she's able to turn it around and really touch people's lives in a way that is meaningful and memorable. But you know what? I'm just going to let's give her a call right now.
Yeah.
She's also in Tennessee. She's an identical twin.
Oh, what part of see.
I'll have to ask her when she answers because I think she just moved.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, is this Jenn Hand?
Is this Marcy?
Yes, it is. Hey, welcome to the Biscuit Book Club.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I love it.
Well, we were just, I didn't bring biscuits into the studio. I did bring chocolate chip cookies, warm out of the oven. And I wish we could all just sit down and have some together because you are seriously one of my favorite people to listen to. I know we've only seen each other face to face, I think once or twice. But
yes, and you know what? I'm 45 minutes away from you. If I had known there was going to be cookies, I would have come.
Oh yes, okay. Next
Where
time.
Where do you live in Tennessee, Jen? I'm Shelley, and I've lived in Knoxville for 11 years.
So I live in Athens. So we're the little town right, before we get to you. So
yes, and you're near Sweetwater.
Yes.
Growing up, my grandparents lived in Sweetwater, and we used to go to the underground, the Lost Sea. Is it still open?
It is, yes.
Wow, I love that place.
I totally want to do that. To go to the Lost Sea. I've seen some of that. I've not really checked out our area that much. I mean, when we lived by Nashville, I was on it. Like I had a membership to the Hermitage, like a pass to that. All the older houses I had gone to, but I haven't really gotten around here. So I'm looking forward to discovering more. So I'll have to put Lost Sea.
I love it. Well, if you want a funny story, I was paid to be an influencer for Monroe County. Sweetwater things. And I had such a blast doing it, introducing people online to different things you can do. But I also got poison ivy on my face. So, my eye looked like I had been up in a fight. And I'm like, come to Sweetwater.
Did you get poison ivy because you were going out and doing all these things for Sweetwater?
I was on a little hike as part of one of the small towns near Sweetwater. It was a beautiful hike. I happened to be a leaf grabber as I hiked, and I just grabbed the wrong leaf.
Goodness.
Oh my gosh!
So painful.
I ended up with poison ivy because I'm used to poison oak in California, but I ended up getting it. Did you have to get injections, or were they able to take care of it with cream?
I did because it was in my eye, so it was pretty rough.
Yeah, that's miserable. So Jen, I am so excited about I love my yeses on the table. Like I read a lot of books, and then sometimes I just end up passing them off to other people. So when I keep a book, that's a big deal. And when I reread a book, that's even a bigger deal. And so I have loved my yeses on the table, moving from fear to faith. And tell me about your new book, though, that's just launched September 16th. And where did you get I read up a little bit about that. I'm so excited to get my copy, which will be coming soon because I was one of your Kickstarter. Kickstarter people because I did a Kickstarter event, and it's kind of vulnerable, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's really just trusting God and people to invest in what you feel God has called you to.
But don't you think then the excitement that they are sharing because they are so excited? It's not just buying a book that they think, oh, this is going to be good. It's like, this is good, and we also want to support you and push this out. They're like doulas, book doulas.
Yes, I love that. It was just so humbling and encouraging, and I would encourage anyone to, if you have a calling in your heart to do something, never let finances and fear of will God provide be the reason you don't do it. Because if the Lord, He will take you on a journey of faith, I'll say, but if the Lord wants that resource, He will provide a way.
Yes, and it grows your faith so much when you do just step out and trust Him.
Yes.
So for us too, like we're writing, we're in the trenches all the time, but you're actually really in the trenches. You don't just write about stuff, you actually go there. And so you've gone to all of these places. I remember, I think when I met you, you were just getting ready you had just come back from Romania or someplace like that. And I wanted to ask you, with all of you're now working with college kids, right?
Yes, I am. I love it. They are so fun.
And I'm just seeing this resurgence of the younger generation rising up and saying we want to pick up the baton that has been dropped and run with it. And I'm seeing this new fervor. Is that just something I'm seeing and hopeful for, or is that something you're actually seeing, boots on the ground, actually living it out day to day?
Yes, I definitely am seeing revival in that generation. I'm also seeing, though, a huge hunger there's all these students that don't know Jesus, but they are hungering to know hope. And so they're open in a way that I just can't even express. Like, they're asking questions. They're coming to Bible studies when they don't even have a Bible. They are really seeking something other than what the world has to offer. So it's powerful to watch. In fact, last night, I'm helping with the college ministry at my church, and then I'm a college ministry director with CCM. And yesterday, our ministry fed almost 200 college students home-cooked meal and the Word at lunch on campus. And then that evening, we go to a house, and there were 76 college students packed into this house. And of that 76, I'd say like 1% know Jesus, but they're all wanting to know who he is.
Wow.
Love that.
That's amazing. What did they say about your book that's coming out? I mean, I think that because, you talked about moving from fear to faith, and I think that we have such a heightened sense of everything is scary, like this is scary, this is scary. Why would you do that? That's scary. But being able to just say, hey, even in the rubble, there's hope. And so how has that book been received by that younger generation?
It's been so sweet to see. I think for them, and it's also sweet but heartbreaking because they, lived in a really weird time with COVID and at a very integral point of their growing up years. And so there's lots of anxiety, lots of trauma, a collective trauma. So the subtitle for Hope Beneath the Rubble is Healing After Trauma. And I just find that generation, not because trauma is trending per se, but people are more willing to talk about it, acknowledge it, and we all globally went through it in a very specific way. And so it's just really, they've been very hungry for the message.
Wow. Well, and I think that I was reading on Hope the other day, and the fact that depression has risen, or diagnosed depression has risen 60% in the last 10 years. And the people who are most affected by that huge jump are 10 to 32-year-olds.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I think the lack of hope, that is such they're desperate. But even just all of, I just think about how fast our lives have changed. Shelley and I will talk about our kids, and when we grew up, and when we had kids, and when our parents had kids, and now our kids are having kids, the difference, now everything gets so so analyzed, overanalyzed. And so I just feel like there is a lack of adventure out there. And I love the adventures you've been on. And I love that you take us on your adventures and that you take kids on those adventures as well.
I love it. I always say that. I mean, the adventure of faith is amazing.
Yeah. And just for someone listening today, Jen, who feels overwhelmed or weary, what's a simple step forward for freedom that advice you would give someone?
Well, I always think you need to start with hope and end with hope. So in my book, it takes you through the acrostic rubble. And where I got that is I had served as a trauma counselor debriefer after an earthquake in Nepal. And I remember people coming looking for hope, and I fell on my knees. I'm like, God, where is the hope here? And I looked among the rubble, and there was a crumpled up cross in the middle of all this rubble. And the Lord said, there's always hope beneath any rubble. And so I wrote this book, and it starts out with the R is that rebuilding is possible. So I think everyone needs to know that. Like, if you've experienced, whether it's a series of earth-shattering events or just all of a sudden your earth shook and everything changed, the truth is when that happens, and I respond to natural disasters around the world, the first question people are asking is, will I ever be normal again? And so I would tell you that rebuilding is possible. And to do that, you begin the steps of understanding trauma, where you can say, this is normal, my response. And then look at your brain and your body and how God made them amazingly to work together and to heal. There's things you can do in both to begin the process, one baby step at a time of healing. And then you can learn to lean into others, and then end with that you will experience hope again as you find your new normal. So I would encourage anyone that's going through a hard time that you just need the beginning and the end of that rebuilding is possible and that you will experience hope. And there are practical baby steps that you can take to heal in between.
Can you tell us the acrostic, since rubble is an acrostic for something? So there's rebuilding is possible. Is the U understanding
yes.
trauma?
Understanding trauma and its effects, because people want to know, like, is this normal, the way I'm responding?
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, I cannot remember where I put my keys after experiencing this hard thing, and to know, like, oh, that's actually a side effect of trauma. And then B is looking at the brain. The other B is the body and the ways those are impacted by trauma and then can be healed. And then L is leaning into others, and E is encountering hope. And so the book takes you through practical steps about your brain, your body, understanding trauma. There's like actual things to do at the end of each chapter to help you find a sense of control. We're not ultimately in control, God is, but when you've experienced the trauma, you feel out of control. So these will guide you to how you begin those steps of healing to find your new normal.
Yeah. And then there's also secondhand trauma, I'm sure. So for people who haven't been through the trauma, maybe of an earthquake or of a wildfire, for those of us who've escaped from California, the wildfires there is secondhand trauma of just knowing people who are in that. And I find myself glued to the stations when I know that there's a fire that's raging near where my loved ones are. And so this is a book that will not only help people who've been through trauma, but also for people who want to help others through trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and also I would say that really the definition I give of trauma in the book is anytime you felt unsafe, relationally, physically, emotionally. And so really there are big T traumas like being in an earthquake, an accident, your life at danger, but there's also what they call small T traumas, which they can build up to have the same need for healing. And it's important that you don't compare your trauma to someone else, or like maybe, sometimes even right now, just you see all the things maybe that we weren't meant to see online. So that can be traumatic. So I really believe there's hope for all of us when we begin to recognize that rebuilding is possible, whether it's a big T trauma, a little T series of traumas, or watching someone else go through a trauma.
Yeah, and that brings up a great point. I remember where I was when the space shuttle exploded. That was, I think, the first time I had ever seen, usually it was like news at 10, like breaking news, follow up at 10 and 11. But now we have real time. And so watching the space shuttle explode affected me in such a different way because I watched it in real time. And I feel like with everybody's phones and with the way that social media is, everything is real time, and you just see the same thing over and over and over, and there sometimes doesn't feel like there is respite from that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We were not meant to take all of that in.
Right. And I think about 9/11. We were all sitting on the couch watching that unfold. Mm-hmm. And my children were little. They were in elementary school. And I think about, they were scared because they kept hearing these stories. And so you think about those things and how it affects us long term even.
Now, Jenn, you're an identical twin with your sister. Well, of course, with your sister. I mean, who would you be an identical twin with? But how has that been for her to see you go to where there is some of these major events?
Oh, it's definitely a faith stretch for her, my parents. I've definitely been to places that are not safe, and so I say I keep their prayer life up for sure.
And then for my yeses on the table, are you still talking about that with younger kids as well? Because I feel like for me, this is something I want to start talking to our grandkids about. The fact that we need to start. You're never too young to start putting your yes on the table. And I just love that, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the Rebel. I think that what you brought up was such a good point as far as God being in our desperation moment. Like for you, just being so authentic and just saying, where is the hope in all this? And I think sometimes if we just quiet our minds and our hearts and we can hear that still small voice, like there's always hope under the rubble. So I love that.
Yeah, and sometimes we just need that reminder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And could you tell us about a moment in your life when you realized God was calling you to more, Jenn?
Oh, that's such a great question. I love that. I think really when God began to stir in me that question, will you put your yes on the table, and I was like, well, I already have, I thought, Lord. I had already lived overseas as a missionary. I, had prayed and said, here's my life, but it's just like a daily minute-by-minute surrender. When that's the more is that on a mundane Monday, I've said yes, and then also when he calls me to go to the other side of the world. And all those in-between moments, like it is a moment-by-moment more. And because of that, I've seen him do Ephesians 3:20 more than I could ask or imagine. In times of deep darkness, I've seen him give me strength to stand with people on their holy ground of suffering. And then I've also seen him, the joy of the Lord, explode. And so I am so grateful that we have a more kind of God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And people are always, every time I see you on Instagram or Facebook, how many people do you think that you've fed at one time? You're always fixing food. What is something that you fix for crowds over 20?
I am always fixing food. You're right. I love it. And especially college people, they always want the food, So my favorite thing to do if I'm having like a group of women over is to just do a brunch with like, make it look cute with all my fun little bowls. I'm not Pinterest, but it's just like, if you do a little extra to like set it pretty, it is just so fun. But my favorite thing to cook for a crowd is I have a cookie recipe that I'm famous for here. And I mean, I didn't make the recipe, but I'm always asked to make it. And then for a big crowd, I love to do like a Mexican taco bar. That'll stretch, I have learned that food can stretch on a budget. You make you a baked spaghetti, and I really would prefer to feed more than less. That's my favorite, is to cook for a crowd.
Yeah, our kids grew up knowing that, hey, there's always room for one more. So there's always room at the table for one more. So it was not uncommon for us to have extra kids around our table and just add a little bit of extra chicken broth and maybe a couple extra potatoes, and we're good. So you do have to tell me, though, because I love cookies as well. I brought cookies into the studio today. I have a recipe that is one of my favorites that John just reminded me, hey, you haven't made that for a while. It is a corn cookie with chipotle chili seasoning.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing.
It is so good and amazing. What is your cookie that people keep asking you for? You said
So it is called a hot chocolate cookie, and it's part of the base of the cookie is 3 packages of hot chocolate mix. And if you get the hot chocolate mix with some of the dehydrated marshmallows, then it has that in the mix as well. So, and then my cookie secret that I have learned is if you bang the cookie sheet on the counter right out of the oven and then put it immediately in the freezer, for a few minutes, it gives it the perfect cookie consistency.
What?
Is that with any cookie or these cookies?
I have done it with any cookies.
So
I read it in a cookbook by Amy Hannon and her cookie recipe, and I just started doing it, and I love doing it for a perfect cookie consistency.
Okay, so you bang the cookie sheet on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
So
one
that,
time.
So that
and then
separates the cookies.
And then you immediately put it in the freezer.
Okay. So if you had it on a cookie, let's say you had it on a parchment paper, you could just probably scoot the parchment paper over if you wanted to reuse your cookie sheet right then?
Yes, you could. Yeah. I usually will just, if I need to do that, I'll just pop it in the freezer. It doesn't take long in the freezer, but you could definitely do that. So
okay.
it is a game changer.
Huh. I'm totally going to have to try that. I know one of my standards is after I bake cookies, I will put like a half a piece of bread in the cookie jar, and that keeps the cookies fresh.
Mm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So if you put a piece of bread in your cookie jar, it keeps your cookies at the perfect consistency. So they never feel stale, or that's the perfect one. But I've never heard about putting it in the freezer. I'm gonna have to try that. I'm gonna put that on my table right now.
I love it. I can't wait to see how it turns out for you, Marcy.
Yeah. Hey, can you share that hot chocolate cookie recipe with us? We'll put it in the show notes. For people who are just listening in, we have been talking with Jenn Hand, who is the author of My Yes is on the Table, that was published by Moody Publishers, and she just has a new book that just hit the market, Rebel. It's what? Can you say the whole title, Jenn?
Hope beneath a rubble, healing after trauma.
Hope beneath the rubble, healing after trauma. And where can people find you, Jenn?
So you can come to jenniferhand.org, or you can find me on Instagram at Coming Alive Jen.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jenn. I am so excited to try that freezer method for my cookies next time. And I'm definitely going to rethink about trauma, big T or the little t, whatever the Lord puts in your path. He doesn't leave you there to figure it out alone. Thanks so much for joining us today on the Biscuit Book Club, where we've been talking to our good friend Jenn Hand, and we're serving stories with Southern charm and probably some cookies this time. I'm Marcy, and this is Shelley.
And I'm Shelley, and we'll be back next week. Until then, keep it cozy, y'all. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to today's Biscuit Book Club with Marcy and Shelley. Be listening next week at the same time for great encouragement and a challenge for what God has for your life on the Biscuit Book Club on Joy 620 WRJZ.